All right, thanks.
All right, this is Richard Weber. I'm of the Kennedale Observer, and I'm filling in as the host for this coffee chat. And this is for place one. We have Rockie Gilley and Chris Evans. Those are the two candidates for place one on the city council race this year. So, Rockie, go ahead for an introduction.
Okay, my name is Rockie Gilley. I'm a retired IT guy. I've got long history in the community. I served on the city council in 2017, 2019. And then this past October, I was appointed to fill a vacancy. There were some vacancies in some resignations on the council. And so I guess you would say I'm the incumbent, and long history in Kennedale. Family's been around here for about 140 odd years. And so that's me.
And Chris.
Hi, Chris Evans, moved to Kennedale a little close to 10 years, maybe a little over 10 years ago. Two kids in the ISD. One's a junior and one just finished up in December, graduated early. Yeah, longtime community member for, like I said, for the past 10 years, and just want to get involved and be a part of the community, and hopefully let the community know what's going on in our city. So
Okay. All right. Each candidate has written 3 questions for the other candidate, and at the end, we'll have a final say. So the first question goes from Chris to Rocky, and the question was, what obligation does the council have to inform the citizens of decisions being made, and how do we get our community engaged in that decision-making process? And what have you done to engage the community?
Okay, first off, you have a great obligation to communicate and interact with the citizens about what's going on. That's one of the issues over the years that has got us to where we are now. Lack of involvement. Part of that was in the past, and I'm talking historically, I don't think the citizens were often paid much attention to. So what I do, how I approach it, is I try to do a direct hands-on approach. If there's an issue that comes up, I try to talk to people in the area. I encourage them to email me, call me. I meet with them, and try to follow up on their problems, not just say, yeah, thanks, but try to follow up a week or so, within a week or two, and stay in touch until the problem is resolved. Social media, I'm not a big fan of social media, except for some things. It's good for getting a wide message out there, but back and forth on social media is not very good for solving problems, unfortunately. It tends to attract conflict and problems. So let's see. The other thing is, since October, I think it goes back a year or so, I think the city itself, the city administration, is doing a much better job through their website, through their Facebook page, through their email system, to let people know what's going on. And I've encouraged that, and I've supported that since October. And I think that's sort of a change from maybe the past. And, for example, I look at my phone today, and let's see. Okay, I have seven city-related phone calls today, and I know I've had at least 2 email exchanges today, and probably yesterday was maybe an email or 2 and 5 or 6 phone calls. So that's how I try to get the information out there and try to share it. And Chris, if you would do us all a favor, next Wednesday night there are going to be some representatives in the city council meeting to talk about the proposed expansion of the landfill across from Mill on Linda. That's one thing I helped set up. But even though I helped set it up, please invite your neighbors to come and hear what they have to say. And then based upon what they say, they can have comments or protests going forward.
Okay, Chris.
Well, I've got to agree with you, Rocky. I think communication to the citizens, I mean, that's got to be priority one, both on the problems and issues facing the city, as well as what the city council's decisions are and how they're going to address them. And I think transparency and the utmost clear, I mean, that's got to be priority one. As far as responding to the citizens goes, of course, I mean, emails, phone calls, always follow up and do the right thing in the correspondence. But what I'd like to see is a little bit more information coming from the council and the city in general as to why decisions are made, what was the thought process behind them, what was the rationale. I think that would go a long way for helping the citizens know what the process is and where some of these decisions are rooted in, versus right now we just get, oh, we're cleaning up the mess from previous councils, or this was that bad decision, or this was the other bad decision. And I think nobody really actually knows what state the city's in and the actual what's going on with it. And thank you for the information about what they're trying to do at the landfill here off Dick Price across from Linda Road. And that kind of goes to one of my other questions for you kind of going on. So, but thanks for letting me know that. I'll make sure to be there.
Okay. The next question was from Rocky to Chris, and it goes as, what do you believe are two of the most important decisions made by the city council since October 2022? So that's the last 6 months. Of those two, let's try that again. Of those two, how would your actions differ from mine?
Well, it's the two decisions. Well, first I'll talk about the moratorium, and I agree with the council's decisions on that. As unfortunate as they are, I don't believe that the city should have ever been or allowed itself to be put into the position to force these moratoriums or to for them to be required. But with that being said, I agree that the council made a good decision in the moratorium. And the only thing I would probably say I would have done different, Rocky, because I agree with your decision. I understand you voted for the moratorium. The only thing I would have liked to have seen is some stipulations on it, and then those stipulations followed through. You know, as far as a time frame, I understand you say government work is like trying to push a rope, and I get that it's slow going. But at some point, I think we all need to, you know, hold people's feet to the fire and get some action and get some swift work done. And then the other one was the parks. I know in some recent decisions, there's been money allocated to the parks, and some decisions on spending have been made in regard to them and improvements. And I think that's great. It's been long overdue. Our parks need to be updated. So as those two decisions are kind of top my list. Both of them have direct impact on the community, and so yeah, I don't disagree with you on the decisions you made and the way you voted on them. I would have just liked to have seen some additional stipulations put on some stuff.
If I might, there are stipulations on it. It's limited to multifamily, and that means apartments and townhomes. It's not for normal residential development or business or commercial. It also has a 140-day limit. And that 140-day limit is to buy us time to figure out exactly what needs to be fixed, how to obtain the money to fix it through a certificate of obligation, revenue bond based upon water and sewer, and then get that started. Those are the stipulations. There's also a provision to appeal it. If someone thinks that their project is outside the problem area or will not cause a problem, there is a mechanism where they can appeal that moratorium.
Okay. Over at the Kennedale Observer, we have questions we sent to the candidates, and they've answered them over the past 6 weeks. So both Rocky and Chris have answered those questions. If you all want to check those out in addition to this coffee chat. All right, round two. The second question from Chris to Rocky. With Kennedale crumbling infrastructure, okay, with Kennedale's crumbling infrastructure and the current moratorium on development, in your opinion, what is the path forward for Kennedale, and how do we make sure Kennedale isn't just getting the leftovers from the already developing areas around us?
I don't believe development is a zero-sum game. In other words, there's not a fixed bucket of development and it's passed out today and then it's never passed out again. Development occurred in the past, current, future, and the far future. What this moratorium does is it allows us to get ahead of the development, and so that we're able to safely support it. It's a public safety issue. When you have a sewer system that's over capacity, you have roads that are over capacity, it's a safety issue. So that's, that's one part of the moratorium is to allow us to try to start fixing that. The other thing is the moratorium allows us time to redo our comprehensive plan and our zoning. Because what we have is an overly complex, in my opinion, overly complex zoning laws and comprehensive plan that doesn't fit where Kennedale, the majority of Kennedale wants to go. And going in, we can take out some of this and reduce some of this dense development in areas where people really don't want the dense development, and our infrastructure can't really support it, and we can't really afford it. Building out infrastructure, especially for large, dense development, is very expensive. And it's not just the upfront cost on the infrastructure, it's maintaining that over its 30, 40, 50-year lifetime. And cities get into what I will call it a Ponzi scheme, where they use future development to pay for current development, and then they use even future development to pay for the future development. And at one point, you run out. You're built out, there's no more development, and you have infrastructure you can't support and pay for. And in a town of 6.5 square miles, we're going to run out pretty quickly. This moratorium also allows us to redo our zoning and our comprehensive plan to bring in the kind of development that people that live in Kennedale want. I don't believe we want to be an apartment city or a townhome city exclusively. We have plenty of townhomes and apartments right now. Probably 15 to 20% of our residents currently now live in townhomes or apartments. People don't move to Kennedale to live in a densely crowded city. They move to Kennedale because they want room to breathe. They want room to move around. They don't want to live like a sardine in a can. And this moratorium will allow us to adjust the zoning for that going forward. So how do we get out of it? We get out of it piece by piece as we can afford it. We fix things as we can afford to fix them. We fix our current infrastructure. We fix our current roads. And no one's going to be happy with the speed of our progress. We're going to have to do it as we can afford it. There's no magic bullets. There's no pie in the sky. If we reach 15,000 people, everything will be paid for. Or if we build a 300 unit apartment complex, the revenue is going to solve our problem. It'll probably create a bigger problem than we have now. Kennedale in the last 12 years has grown 50%. In the last 2 or 3 years, it's grown 25%. Our problem is not lack of growth. It's growth at too rapid a rate that we can't support. And it is the kind of growth that really doesn't support itself. And we need to adjust that.
Chris?
Oh, I'll agree with you on a few of those points there about the kind of growth Kennedale has been experiencing hasn't been enough to support the infrastructure. I mean, our roads are crumbling, and you said the sewer system. I mean, everything's in shambles, and to be honest with you, I don't know if the moratorium sends the right message. I agree that the moratorium had to be done. Had to be done in order to get our zoning laws, our codes, our ordinances, all that stuff needed to be updated. And it also needs to be, we need to make sure that our codes and regulations don't contradict each other. So I mean, I understand that was some of the problems with the apartments. And I agree. Nobody wants a super dense population and an overcrowded Kennedale. But unfortunately, that's what we're getting, whether we like it or not. And it's not the residents of Kennedale that are causing the density. Kennedale is becoming a pass-through city. Look at Dick Price, almost any time from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. The amount of traffic, I mean, it feels like I'm living off an interstate sometimes. And the same thing with Kennedale Parkway. So my biggest concern is that this moratorium, as the cities around us expand and businesses move into those cities and developers move in, and everybody expands right up to our borders, what are we going to be left with when this moratorium, when we finally get our stuff squared away and in order? Then what is Kennedale going to be left with in the next 3-4 years from now, when everything's supposedly fixed and ready to develop? Who's going to want to move in here? Because if they're Johnny on the spot, they've already moved in and set up shop in Forest Hill, South Fort Worth, Southwest Arlington, Northwest Mansfield. They've already picked their locations in those areas. And so my biggest fear is that then we get the leftovers. But I agree with you that nobody wants an overcrowded and super dense Kennedale. But unfortunately, that's kind of what we have right now. Overcrowding on the city streets. And as people drive through and the 18-wheelers come through, putting the wear and tear on the roads as they are, and those people have nowhere, really not that many options to spend their money in Kennedale. It's passed through on the way from I-20 down to 1187 or into Mansfield and Rendon and all that stuff. So that's my biggest concern, is that this moratorium can send the wrong message. Now, if we do it right and we actually develop our codes and update our plans, we could use it to our advantage. I just fear that that's not going to happen.
Okay, and the question from Chris to Rocky, Rocky to Chris, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. And the question to Rocky to Chris is, what attracted you to live in Kennedale?
A couple of things. We moved here from Mansfield, little 10 years or so, little over 10 years ago. And the reason we moved here from Mansfield is because I didn't like the fact that on every single plot of grass, Mansfield was thrown in a strip mall, this, that, the other. I didn't like that. It wasn't the situation I wanted to raise my family in. And we chose Kennedale because one, the pricing was right on the home we bought, and two, it's, to me, it was the best of both worlds. The country living within 15 to 20 minutes of downtown Fort Worth. And like you pointed out, I live off Linda Road out here. So I'm barely within the city limits as is. And one of my favorite things was seeing the foxes in the road and the hawks, and being able to go out on my patio at night and not hear traffic and just not have the feeling of the hustle and the bustle of Dallas and Fort Worth. I didn't want that. And that's how it started off in Kennedale, and it was great. And probably, I know, Rocky, you said over the past 2 or 3 years, the population has really grown by an additional 25%. I've seen that. I see that on Linda Road. Every time I try to get out onto Dick Price Road, and it takes me 5 or 10 minutes of waiting for truck after dump truck after dump truck, either going to the sand pit or the landfill there. It's just, it's quickly becoming not the country feel. But something I have realized over the past few months, and it just stems from me being more involved in the community and actually getting to know people. I think that hometown and that country feeling that I was longing for and was attempting to seek, just strictly by my residence being out in the country, I think I missed out on a lot of years of actually where that hometown feeling comes from. And that's from the people. Getting involved over the past couple months, not only in band booster, fundraisers, this, that, but even with the Methodist Church and their quarter auctions. I never realized how fun that could be, and just the fellowship of the people and getting to know some of them and talk to them. It's kind of changed my perspective on where the hometown feeling in Kennedale and the country feeling actually comes from.
Okay, Rocky?
You and I were saying about the same thing. And that's the thing that I don't understand, is you're afraid that we'll lose development because of the moratorium and because of the revisions of our UDCs. And we're going to try to do it right this time. We're going to actually involve the citizens and listen to the citizens. The last time it was done, it was a sham. I was there. I saw it. It was a sham. And we see the result of it. I have tangible things that I can point to where I've tried to keep the less dense, less traffic, hometown feel. That's what I'm about. That's the uniqueness of Kennedale. That is the best thing that we have going for us. Let's not let developers come in here and kill it by strip mining Kennedale. That means come in, build it out, pack us in like sardines, take their money, leave, and leave us with the wreckage. That is the whole intent of the moratorium and the reconfiguration of the zoning in the UDC. And that's what I'm committed to. I have that. If you look at my record in 2017 through 2019, that's what I supported. That's what I've supported since October of 2022.
Okay, that ends round two. The next question
Richard,
goes, Chris.
You're making it sound like a boxing match, and it's really not. It's not. I don't think I'd stand a chance against Chris. I'm too old, frail.
All right.
Well,
and
actually,
this corner is Rocky.
actually, you two have a lot in common in that you both live on the west end of town.
Oh yeah, but
So-
yeah, I live on Dick Price. It's a death trap.
It is.
It's only gotten worse. And what
Okay,
we can do about it is limited. It is a county road. We have costs associated with it, but we really don't have control over it. And there's even been talk about widening it to 4 lanes. And they asked me, Rocky, what do you think about widening it to 4 lanes? I said, widen it to 4 lanes. I think we'll go from an overutilized 2-lane road to an overutilized 4-lane road. That's what tends to happen. But sorry for interjecting that. That was just
okay. Question 5, Chris to Rocky. In your opinion, what, if any, responsibility does the council have to work with our neighboring cities to determine what their plans are for developing our borders? And how do we capitalize on that?
we do have an obligation, and the adjoining cities have the reciprocal obligation to work with us too. I will say since at least last summer, with a new city manager and new mayor and some new people on the council, that we have a better relationship with our surrounding cities than we have in many, many years, maybe 20 or 30. I'll also say that, and most of this credit actually will go to the mayor and the city manager, although I've supported them in the effort since October. From the county commissioners and commissioner in precinct 2, we've received over 800. They've committed up to $800,000 to help us repair the roads, and that's money in addition to what we obtained 6 months before that. And that's part of the relationship that we have to have. I've also met with council members in Arlington, Everman, Forest Hill, Burleson, and networked with them, got to know them, and works in an area where now we're sharing equipment. For example, Everman has some equipment that we don't have. So we can borrow their equipment to do some of the things. We have equipment that Everman doesn't have. Interlocal agreements. So we're doing that. Are we doing it enough? No. Should we do more? Yes. And I would like to do more. I had a nice meeting with our new county judge, and the county judge is not a magistrate in Texas. A county judge is like the mayor of the county commissioners, right? So think of him as the mayor of Tarrant County. Had a nice meeting with him, discussed, been in contact with his chief of staff and his outreach person. And that's one of the things that I've done. Actually, I got an email from him yesterday. He says, Rocky, if you want to use my endorsement, feel free, so I don't know that I will use it, but that just made me feel good. So that is one of the things that we do. Now, cities tend to look out for their own interest. And I think that people in Kennedale want me and everybody else in city council to look out for Kennedale first. That's how it's done. Cities tend to place their crap on their border that adjoins another city. we got the Southeast landfill. It's actually in Fort Worth, but it's slap up against Kennedale, and that's I refer to that as the stinky dump. And then we have the dump that down by Linda, that I call it the dump. It's the solid waste dump that catches on fire every couple of years. That's the one by Linda, and that's in Fort Worth also. And Arlington, a lot of people say, the south part of Kennedale just looks really trashy with all the salvage yards. I can't agree with that. I can't disagree with that. It needs to be fixed. It's been a 30-year process. Most of the salvage yards in Kennedale that can be closed or are closing. There's some that can't be. Some of them are grandfathered in because they were annexed after September 1st, 1995. But as you go south, the really nasty, trashy stuff is in Arlington. It's not Kennedale, but people think it's Kennedale, and that's just how cities work. We're small, and we also we need to work with these cities so that they don't take advantage of us. Now, there's some things that have been great. Arlington's expanding part of Sublet off to the east, sort of between the top of what I call Murray Hill and Kroger. That's a good thing. That came from Arlington and County Commissioner Precinct 2 County Commissioner. But realize all of that development is actually in Arlington, and we'll benefit some from it. But that's really in Arlington. But that's one area where they've cooperated with us. But I will say, I can honestly say, in the last 9 months, our relationship with surrounding cities is better than it has been in 20 or 30 years. And I can only claim just a little bit, maybe, of the credit, just not much, just a little bit, but I'll claim that little bit.
Chris?
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad that the relationship with our surrounding cities is improving, because what I see is places like Arlington and what you just referenced there by Kroger, all that development going on. It is, yeah, they're great at working with us, but that's just so that they can get our money. Everybody,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's this.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what they're going after. Yeah, I mean,
you got it.
And as far as going south on Kennedale Parkway into Mansfield, I understand that the city limits, I mean, it's all convoluted through there. What's Arlington, what's Mansfield, what's Kennedale. And I think for too long, the city of Kennedale has been overlooked or even marginalized by the surrounding cities. And I don't know if that's because of previous councils or previous government here in Kennedale. But for the longest time, everybody knew Kennedale because of the scrap yards and the auto parts stores and the racetrack and the shooting range out there. I mean, that's what Kennedale is known for: the racetrack, the shooting range, and all the scrap yards. That's
the racetracks. Don't forget the racetracks.
Yep, the racetracks. That's what we were known for, and I think for far too long we've kind of let Kennedale slowly wither, and now we're having to play catch up. So, and when I say slowly wither, I'm talking about in comparison to, say, Everman, Forest Hills, Mansfield. Look how Forest Hills has grown up and taken advantage of their property along the interstate and with businesses there. But just in general, I think that Kennedale for far too long has been neglected. And and I don't want to say negligent in serving the citizens, but we certainly haven't progressed like the other areas around us. And in my opinion, we have to. If we don't start, like, I'm glad you said it, Rocky. I'm glad everybody's working with the local governments and trying to get on the same page with them, because if we don't, we're just going to get steamrolled even more by our neighboring cities and become more of a pass-through city. And hell, I guess if we're going to close down the other racetracks in Kennedale Parkway will become the new drag strip as everybody speeds through it on their way out of Kennedale or way through it.
Yeah, I think KSP, the remaining track, I think they're happy to be in business. And there's some things a perspective that I can bring, and for hopefully people that watch it, having from here. I mean, my great grandparents are buried about 2.5 miles as the crow flies from my house. Okay, so I've seen it over my life, and I've heard the stories from my parents and grandparents. Kennedale in the 1960s, when this area was expanding and US 287 was built, when I-20 was built, early 70s, Kennedale at the time chose to stay small. Arlington, Mansfield, Fort Worth, to some, yeah, Fort Worth, not so much Forest Hill, they went on an annexation spree. All of that retail along US 287, that goes right through my old family farm. The Kroger, that's where my great grandparents' old homestead was. South Oaks Baptist Church, that's by where my grandpa's farm was. So Kennedale decided to stay small, and other cities came in and grabbed that. We can't turn back the clock. That decision was made for us 60 years ago. We are never going to attract the kind of development that Kroger and Albertsons have on 287. It's not going to happen. At one time, Kennedale had a grocery store, had a bank, it had all those things, but that was when Kennedale was the center of the area and it was very rural. But as things grew up around us, all of those businesses moved on the outside edge. Where Kennedale can succeed is through unique businesses. We have some real jewels in this area. The Sun Thai, I believe that's how it's pronounced, Vietnamese whiskey distillery on Kennedale Parkway is absolutely amazing. Is probably one of the only ones that make traditional Vietnamese rice-based liquor in the United States. The two gentlemen that run it, it's the cleanest facility, the best one I've ever seen. Goldie's Barbecue down by us, just a little outside the city limits. You know, last year they said it was the best barbecue joint in Texas. We have some jewels in this town. And let me tell you about Kennedale compared to Arlington, Everman, Fort Worth. The average household income in Kennedale is $110,000 a year. Arlington would kill for that. Arlington's 40 or 50. Forest Hill is probably less than that. Everman's less. I'm not sure about Mansfield. We're probably comparable to Mansfield in average household income. Not to say that there's not people in Kennedale that struggle, because there are. You know, we have our share of people that are just struggling to get by also. But we have that going for us. Our tax rate, our property tax rate is less than Everman, less than Forest Hill, less than Fort Worth, comparable to Mansfield, and a little bit higher than Arlington. So we do have some good things going for us. I think we need to play to our strengths. I don't think we'll ever be a business hub. I mean, it could happen, but you know, if you look at the possibilities versus the probabilities, probably we're not going to get an Amazon warehouse. But we could get some good manufacturing jobs. We have some good ones here. We need to take what we have, our strength, which is a quiet town that feels like kind of homey and kind of down to earth, and you don't feel all. It's a refuge from the hustle and bustle of the DFW Metroplex, and then develop our small businesses and our unique businesses to help us control the tax rate, provide jobs and shopping opportunities. The thing that just sticks in my craw, and I've had this conversation with the city manager and the city manager before that, before the current one, and the one we have now is a great improvement. Is you drive up and down 1187, and mostly in the county, and you see all sorts of development down there, nice development. We could have that on the Parkway if we revise our overly complex development code, maybe look at what's called form-based zoning. I think that's worth considering as we go through this UDC revision process. And if we had encouraged small businesses in the past, rather than just always just saying no, instead of working with them to accomplish a goal, heretofore it's been, nah, we don't want you. No, you can't do that. I'm seeing that change with our new community development director, our new code enforcement person, and our new city manager. I think I'm starting to see the signs of change. But we have got a long, long, long way to go. We have just begun to try to solve some of the issues of the past. And it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be a year. It's not going to be 3 years. It's not going to be 5 years. We can make some progress in that amount of time, but it's going to be many years.
All right, Chris, you got a reaction or anything you want to say?
I kind of agree. It's a long process and for too many years, Kennedale has been kind of neglected. The only thing I do want to say though is, again, the density is already here. We see it in our traffic on Linda Road and on the Parkway. It's here, and we've got to do something about it and have the areas where people can spend their money, because everybody's using pass-through Kennedale as a pass-through on their way either home or their way to the grocery store. They use it as a way to avoid traffic, and we don't get dime one of revenue from that. So we've got to encourage our businesses, partner with them to grow and become sustainable, and to where their businesses are thriving, and in turn our community thrives.
Yes.
That's the only way Kennedale is ever going to climb out of this hole that it's in, because the only other way to get money for the city is to raise property taxes, and nobody wants that. I certainly don't want it. I think I pay enough to Tarrant County. Hope they're not listening, but yeah, I mean, so the only option we have is to fix our infrastructure, get it straightened out, and get partnered with good, thriving, unique businesses that will succeed and grow and continue to fund Kennedale in the future. That's the only way I see it going forward. And everybody wants the small country, small hometown atmosphere. And by delaying these improvements and not doing what they've needed, what they should have been doing for the past 10, 15, 20 years, I feel like we're in a situation where we're playing catch up. Now, instead of being able to dictate what we wanted and how we were wanting to grow, now we're almost being forced a little bit because of how everything else has encroached on our borders. We no longer have 100% of the say so because we've kind of got to keep up and kind of have to go with the flow of what's come in and accommodate for that. And I just wish we would have been a little bit more proactive over the past 20, 30 years in looking at this and preparing for the future. But right now, as I see it, the only way to prepare is to fix the roads, fix the sewers, and get places in here for people to spend money and good businesses that the community wants. Don't get me wrong, I'm very pro business. Anybody who's willing to take a chance and open up a distillery, pizza place, whatever. I'm very pro business and I'm all for it. But also, we need Kennedale and the citizens need to be thinking about what kind of businesses do we want to see? Do we want to see more of the local pharmacies and local businesses closing and liquor stores coming in? And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking them because it's positive for the city. It's sales and it's a place to spend money. But I think the community needs to get more involved and help shape the future instead of forcing the council or leaving it up to the council and the mayor and the city manager, who I agree Rockie has done a great job so far. And I expect great things to come from him as he learns the role even more so. I expect some good things from him. But I think now's our time, and we've either got to seize it and start making the right decisions and doing the right stuff, or else Kennedale isn't going to be here 15, 20 years from now if we don't start doing something right.
All right. Now, the next question goes to Chris. What are your ideas about making growth pay for itself?
Well, if the businesses are good and everything, they will pay for themselves. And good businesses coming in that are thriving, that generate the sales tax revenue and the business, they pay for the wear. That income pays for the wear and tear on the roads, on the sewers, and would allow the city to actually do the maintenance and fix the problems. And I think what we've seen is, like Rockie alluded to, the city hasn't done enough over the past 15, 20 years, and now everything's fallen apart.
I would say 50 years.
50 years,
yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah, so, in my in my living memory, a lot of the things that were there's a water main on New Hope that had been torn up 6-7 times in the last couple of years. The issue was 65-year-old cast iron water main, and so we allocated $100,000 to put a new one in, and I believe the water main has now been the real repair has been done, the replacement on New Hope, because we were getting ready to repave New Hope Road, and it's stupid to repave New Hope Road when you have a water main that breaks 4 times a year. But I'm intruding on your time. But that is yes, that is an issue, and I don't like to blaming someone else and things in the past. Yeah, I don't, but it's the truth.
Yeah,
it was almost like in the 90s. The 90s were a wasted decade in Kennedale, and in that some of the things from the 50s and 60s that should have been replaced in the 90s, now we're replacing that in the 90s. Good God, it's 30 something years ago now. It's making me feel old. But it's like the old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, and the next best time is now, and the time is now. And I think we have made some progress, and I agree with you. Businesses need to be encouraged. We need to simplify and encourage them and revise our zoning laws so that they can operate. I'm not talking about compromising safety. I'm not talking about ugly buildings. I'm just talking little things. Example, there's a gentleman that was wanting to open a business on Kennedale Parkway, and the building is 60 years old. It's vacant. He kind of cleans it up. He brings it up to electric code. Puts in fire alarms, redoes the door, repaves the parking lot, paints it, and he's trying to get a certificate of occupancy. And he was 3 parking places short. And there's another $5,000. Well, to me, that's where, okay, let's let you open the business. If you'll pave those parking places, say in the next year or the next 6 months, or we'll say 15 is enough and you don't have to have 18. It's just the little things like that and working with people. And Chris, I think and you and I are together on that. We just gotta change the perception of Kennedale being hard to deal with, and change it to being easy to deal with, and undo the 30 years or 20 years, however many years it took to build up that reputation. And I'm right there with you on that. And I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, you're fine. And it brings up the point. One of the things I've heard people say is that Kennedale is one of the most difficult cities to work with to try to take your money. They want to take your money, but they make it damn near impossible to take it. I mean, your thing about the parking spaces. Come on, let them get occupied, let them get their business going, and then with the promise, even in writing, contract or however it needs to be done, that yes, this will be done in X amount of time. But let people work with them. Yes. and quit playing this, because as I see it, Richard, the business is paying. I don't care if you let every square inch of Kennedale right now, if you were to fill it up with businesses tomorrow that were thriving, they're not going to generate enough money to fix all of the problems that we have. Now, they would generate enough money to be able to sustain them and maintain them in the future. Mm-hmm. But we've got to fix we've got to set those businesses up for success with our infrastructure. Yes. And we've been neglecting that. I mean, it's been neglected over 50. I mean, it's Kennedale. I mean, everybody, I always want to say it's Kennedale. It's Kennedale.
Yeah.
And we can't say that anymore, unfortunately, because if we keep saying that and keep doing business and treating people the way we have, like I said, Kennedale won't be around in 15, 20 years if we keep going the way we have in the past. So businesses should be able to pay for themselves and spur growth and pay for the wear and tear on the infrastructure. I mean, that's almost a no-brainer. But I don't know if there's any amount of business that could come in right now that could give Kennedale enough money to fix all the issues with the sewer, the roads, electrical. I mean, just everything. The flood, it's in
Okay.
stuff is in shambles, and we've got to get it addressed and taken care of. So,
Okay. Rocky, did you have something else to add for this or not? Did you
Uh,
already say it?
no, I think I've probably talked enough. Chris, I think you and I are pretty much
yeah,
pretty much on the same page. I guess one of the areas that I might differ with it a little bit is development. And I think the intent with the moratorium on the multifamily is to limit any future multifamily to areas that it's suited for. And I know next Tuesday night, we're going to vote on some quick things that we can do to the UDC that we can change quickly. Is changing the setback requirements on R4. Is changing, requiring a larger lot for R4. We're possibly reducing the number of units per acre from 28 to 8 to make the town less dense. And there's some other things to kind of, Kennedale's going to grow. Our problem is not lack of growth. It's the type of growth and the speed of the growth that we haven't been able to stay ahead of. And I think now the current council and me, we live here, and I put the interest of the people that live here above developers, above city administration. I put them above all of it, and it's time that we represent the citizens. It's their city. There's a reason they moved here. Let's keep it let's keep the good things. There are a lot of good things about Kennedale. The people, the community, the feeling of, it's like someone described, I spoke with some people out on Colby Street about a week back, and they were all outside, wives, husbands, the kids riding around bicycles, just visiting out in the street. Yeah. And one of them said, yeah, this street is like 1950s America with cell phones. And, that's what I'm for. That's what I want. And if I have anything to do with it, these citizens and business owners will be involved at every step with the revision of the UDC. And we'll get to hopefully make things better. And you're right, we're not going to fix it overnight. It's just going to be the long, steady grind, fix what we can as we can afford to fix it, and never fall back, and never and don't tear it up. There's an apartment complex in town that went in a location that built into the road baseline, which puts you in the position of either having to tear down the part of the apartments or paving over graves to ever widen that road. I was against that. I voted against it. Lost. And that's an example. Now to widen that road and to change that interchange, instead of $3 or $4 million to ever widen that, now we're going to spend $20, $30 million simply because in the past, our UDC, our past councils, our past administration didn't care. They just wanted the bodies. They just wanted the population. And now we're stuck with it. And nothing against the people that live there. It's not their fault. They're innocent. It's just where it went. And we can't do that anymore. We can't, those forced errors, we can't do that.
Agreed. We can't get in bed with contractors and developers who are gonna say they're gonna deliver one thing and then not deliver.
Right.
And shame on Kennedale for allowing that to happen and not having I don't know all the details of it, but I'm sure there's stuff that
Yeah, there's stuff there. Yeah.
I'm not privy to, that's done is talked about in executive sessions. Um, but shame on Kennedale for even allowing that to happen with the contractor and the developer.
Um,
Uh, Somewhere we've got to hold people accountable
yeah.
for that.
One thing, one change that will be made soon is it will transfer the final site approval from the community development director, who reports to the city manager, to actually the city council will actually vote on final approval. And I think there's a big change, as long as you keep a good city council. Okay. As long as they're not in bed with the developers, which in Texas, generally your city councils are run by developers. That's it. Kennedale is unique in that we're not. But I think there's another change that will help us going forward and prevent some of these problems that we've had in the past.
Okay, my question had exactly to what you'd all just answered, so I won't, in the sake of time, I won't even ask that question. Y'all have covered it. So
I was going to say we've kind of covered everything.
We're at an hour, and here I was saying, "Yeah, let's do it in 20 or 30 minutes." That shows you me, right?
all right, so Chris,
this went pretty quick though, so I hope everybody that's watching it should be pretty fast paced, and I don't think it'll be a boring watch for any of the citizens out there. So,
well, of the 5 people that watch this,
but 5 people are going to watch it. 3 of them are right here.
Yeah. Well, there's Jeff, and Richard, me, you, and my wife. Okay, that's fine.
And I was gonna say, and James will probably chime in just to watch it when it gets published. So at least we know we'll have 5 or 6 viewers. So,
all right, Chris, why don't you take a minute and close out your, just tell us about your campaign and so on and so forth.
Like I said, I want to know one of the reasons I'm running, and it's nothing against Rocky, personally or anything. I was asked why I'm running, and it's because I want to know, and then I want to let the citizens know. I was just tired over the past couple years of when you ask a question. If I ask one of the councilmen a question, I get one answer. Then the other councilman will give a similar answer, but slightly different on who's to blame. And everybody wants to point blame here, point blame there, and different answers of, well, they did this, they did that. And I just want the answers, and I want the city, and I guess more importantly, I want the community to know why Kennedale is making these decisions, why we're doing this, why we're doing that, what's the reason behind it. I mean, everybody, it's very easy to point out, oh, that was a bad decision, when you don't know what the factors were behind that decision being made. So I want transparency. I want the average Joe Blow citizen to be able to come to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then we talk about stuff and go, okay, well, let's start putting this forward. Let's start moving forward with these agendas. I want to be the voice of the people that I feel have been marginalized or neglected for the past many years. One of the prime examples was a few years ago. They were talking about developing out here on Linda Road, right there where Linda Road and Dick Price meet up. They were wanting to put in this big 100 and something, residence lot with warehouses and this, that, the other. And nobody who lived on Linda Road knew about it. because with the city ordinance is, well, if you're within 50 feet of the property, well, then they have to notify you. So,
It's 200 feet, but okay, yes.
but at the time we were told, but even 200, to put that in perspective, where I live here off Linda Road, it's 125 feet from the road to my front door. So I could literally be across the street from where the city was wanting to do that development, and they wouldn't have had to notify me because of the distance. And that's, I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of
me
it.
too. Me too. Yes, I'm tired of it too.
And I'm tired of it for the citizens. So, yeah, I'm running because I want to help. I want to know what I'm a fixer. I'm a problem solver. So I tend to grab the bull by the horns, identify the problem, bite the bullet, and move forward. Come up with the solution, the best solution, and drive it home. Go forward, keep moving forward, keep grinding, no matter what, because that's what it takes to succeed. And unless we start doing that in Kennedale, we're not going to be successful. So.
Okay, and Rocky, you get the final word.
You know, I agree with that. I agree with all of that. There was another issue on Linda. They were wanting to put in an apartment complex. Do you remember that one? And they were wanting to call it a neighborhood village. Oh, village. No, it's going to be 3-story apartments on a road that has insufficient water supply, insufficient sewer supply, no traffic control. The road's not wide enough.
Yep.
And there's no exit.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, I was backing as a private citizen, but I stay involved. It's like once you get this involved in this city stuff, it's kind of like hard to put down. And it's probably still out there on social media if you look around. That was a disaster.
It was.
And that was a disaster waiting to happen. And that's an example of what we cannot allow going forward. I did my best to let people know about it. And I talked to my council members, and thank God we had a council elected in 2021 that voted that down. Now, the other thing on Linda is eventually sometime we're talking about passing a bond for it to extend Little Road from 287 initially to New Hope Road and then eventually to Dick Price. And the reason it needs to be done is when the trains stop across either Dick Price or Everett or New Hope, emergency services can't get to the south part of town. So the more rooftops you add to the south part of town, the more of a public safety risk is going to be there. And that would also open up the southern part of town for a little more development. Over my dead body, will Linda Road be used as the connector between New Hope and US 287? Because people built their homes on Little Road when it was a little country lane. And if you run a 4-lane road through the middle of that, you're going to destroy their life, their quality of life. And that things like that just cannot happen. That happened to people on College Sublet over by Magnolia Hills, a little asphalt road that was ignored by the city for a gazillion years. A housing development went in, and that road was crumbling then, and now it's crumbling, and now people are zooming up and down it, cutting between Sweeney Height and Little School Road, right through Magnolia Hills, right down College Sublet. And we're looking at about $3 million to repair that road, and it hasn't started yet. It's just things like that. We can't do that going forward. And Chris, I think you and I are the same. We're pretty much on the same the same page. I appreciate that. And regardless, please stay involved in Kennedale. We need younger people. I'm not exactly ancient, but I'm not a kid. And we need to bring, Kennedale has suffered from apathy for many years. And a lot of the reason of that in the past, city council, in my opinion, just did whatever the heck they wanted to. And they didn't pay attention to the people. And so people just kind of gave up. But they've never listened to me before. They didn't listen to my daddy. They didn't listen to my grandpa. They're not going to listen to me. Well, we got a whole new population in Kennedale that I think will reject that. And I hope they do. And I hope they realize that if you want to make things better, get involved, stay involved. And it's not a whole lot of fun. But if you want a better city, you need to make your voice heard, serve on boards, run for city council. Just come to a council meeting, vote in a city council election. You know, out of the probably 5,000 registered voters, maybe 4,500. Generally, we don't even have 1,000 people vote in a city council election because they don't think it's important. Well, it is. I can assure you, local government has more control over your life than anything really that happens in DC. When you pull out of your driveway, the pothole you hit is local government. The stop sign that somebody blows through and nearly kills you, that's local government. When you have a heart attack and they need to send an ambulance, it's local government. When you turn on your water and crap runs out, it's local government. When you flush your toilet and it doesn't flush, it's local government. Those things matter.
Yep.
You also, depending on your income level, if you're like me and old and retired and in the way, the biggest check you write is probably your property taxes. Now, most of that goes to the school, but most retired people don't really pay that much in federal income taxes, and lower income people don't pay that in income taxes. But by God, they pay it in property taxes, and they need to make sure that they're heard and they stay involved. And it may be just a small little town, but it's important, and staying involved is important.
All right. I'd like to thank our guests, Chris Evans and Rockie Gilley, the two candidates for place one on your ballot May 6th. Early voting will start April 24th on Monday, April 24th, and go through Tuesday, May 2nd. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching. There'll be
all 5 of them, right? All 5 people.
There are 3 more.
3 more.
And there's a debate going to be hosted by the League of Women Voters. I believe that's on Monday, April 24th.
Yeah.
And that's going to be over at the high school. Well, I forget the room, whatever.
I think it's the they usually have it in the Performing Arts Center, like the stage.
Why was I thinking it was in the media?
I think it might be the media. I think that's what I swears.
Okay. In the media room? Okay. Yeah, maybe they moved it. Okay.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
Either way,
stay tuned for more details.
They only needed room for 15 people that will show up, right?
So anyway, thank you both for
participating.
You,
thank you,
and
Bye,
take care.
All right.
Bye.